And a lot of people don't understand is that sometimes it's not the enemy who is your destiny killer, but it is you who is the destiny killer. So when the Lord started teaching me who I was not, I realized that that part of my life was really ran by fear. It was so much fear going on in my life that just went unnoticed because I'm living this life where I'm trying to fit in the world. I'm trying to do things the world does. I'm trying to do things in a way that might not be the ways of God. And a lot of people, a lot of Christians don't realize that sometimes they're operating in fear. So God had taken me through this journey and he had shown me who I was not. He had started mentioning little things in my life that I would do that was not really pleasing to him or did not align with who I was. And a lot of these things were worked up and operated out of fear. And because I was operating out of fear, there were a lot of things in my life that were going in a way that was not part of my destiny. And a lot of people don't understand is that sometimes it's not the enemy who is your destiny killer, but it is you who is the destiny killer. It is you allowing fear to dictate the direction you go in life. So before the Lord could start teaching me who I am, he started to teach me who I was not. And even the relationships that I would get into, even certain job fields I would get into, even certain things that I would do to try to satisfy myself or to try to get ahead because I felt like I was in survival mode. I felt like I had to do something about my life. It was all operated out of fear. When you worry so much about this life, when you worry about finances, when you worry about your relationships, when you worry about the things of this life that literally they're nothing to God. God can immediately change those things, turn them around in an instant. But when you worry so much about them and you focus on them, you focus on the things going on around you, you start to shift your mind, shift your eyes towards the things of this world, towards your problems, towards your struggles, towards your relationships. And you start to take your eyes off of God and you start going in your own way. And a lot of people don't realize this is they settle for a lot of things. They settle for things below what God has for them. They settle for things in relationships. They settle for things with careers. You know, you're trying to take on a career and God has called you to be an entrepreneur, but you don't want to be an entrepreneur because you're afraid to take the risk. You're afraid to make the sacrifices. You're afraid to go and do the things that nobody else in your family has done because you don't want to look crazy. You're afraid of what people will think of you. It's all about taking risks and making these sacrifices. But when you are with God, when you are doing these things with God, you're going to do them and it's not going to be in vain because he's going to lead you and he's going to guide you. You're going to see the fruit of it. You're going to see the fruit of your labor. But the more that you labor, the more that you try to put in so much work without God, you will continually labor and it will look like it's all in vain. It would look like you're doing all these things for nothing. It would look like you're working this job trying to get ahead and you're still at the same point. You're still on the same pay scale. You're still doing things the same way. You're trying to find the right relationship, yet you're going for the same type of people. And God is trying to shift your mindset, elevate your mind so that you can attract the right people. And it's so interesting to understand how so many of us, Christians included, people in the world, we operate with fear. We've allowed fear to be our friend. We've allowed fear to stop us. We've allowed fear to prevent us from fully walking in that which God has called us to walk into. And I started to notice these things in my life. And even when I got to a point where I felt like I was good, I felt like, I'm walking with the Lord. There were many moments where God would say, I want you to do this. I want you to walk by faith. I want you to do this. And because it's unfamiliar with me, because it makes me uncomfortable, I wasn't able to do it because of fear. Fear was like, I don't know the outcome. Fear was like, I don't know what people would say. Fear is like, not everybody does this. I can't be the only one that does it. And you just start to operate in this fear. And when you start operating in fear, it is like disobedience to God because now you are going against what God has said about you. You are going against what God has for you. And when you start operating in fear, that's when you really start experiencing the most attacks. That's when you really start experiencing things going wrong in your life because disobedience is like witchcraft. And so now that you are in disobedience with God, you've allowed things to come against you. You've opened a door, you've opened a window for things to come against you and stop you, stop your destiny, stop the will of God for your life. And so I had to understand that this fear thing that I would feel when God would ask me to do something, I had to push forward. I had to move past it. This fear that always stood in my way, that didn't allow me to fully become me, that didn't allow me to fully make the decisions that I wanted to make, to say the no's that I wanted to say, the yeses I wanted to say. This fear that was always standing in front of me, I had to learn to push forward. I had to learn to understand that this fear is there because there is a door that God has for me, and I must push forward. I must push past this fear in order to walk through what God has for me. And so learning who you are is key, because you start to understand the power that you carry. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. You start to understand the power that God has given to you. You start to understand the love God has given to you, not your love, because your love has conditions to it, but it's a love that God pours into you that comes from Him. It's a love that says nothing can separate me from the love of God. No angel, no demon, no witch, nothing can separate me from this love of God that He has for me. And His love will make your life fruitful. His love will make your life abundant. His love will make your life what it is supposed to be. It will be beautiful. And He gives you a sound mind. He gives you peace of mind that when you are walking by faith, you are not operating in confusion. You're not operating in doubt. You are walking and moving forward with the Lord by your side. It's this thing called fear that we have to move past. It's this thing that prevents us from fully becoming who we need to be. It's this fear that says, stay stagnant, stay where you're at. I think about, the Lord always reminds me about the Egyptians when they went and attacked the Israelites, and God brought them over and put them in the wilderness and defeated their enemies. And God was doing signs, miracles, wonders, and all these things. And then when He showed them the promised land, they feared going because they said, the giants in the land are greater than me. They feared going because they saw the giants. God didn't say anything about the giants. God didn't say that they would die. They just saw the giants and they started to come up with their own idea, their own thinking of what these giants could do to them, of what these giants could stop them from doing. And God was just like, I can't deal with these people who don't trust in me, who don't believe in me. And I've shown them so many times before what I can do. I've shown them miracles. I've provided for them. I've become everything that they need me to be, yet they are still afraid to walk in that which I've called them to walk into. They're afraid to possess the land that I have already freely given to them. So to know who you are is being confident in who God says you are. To know who you are is being confident in God. To know who you are is being confident when He says, I have laid a path for you, walk in it. Knowing that there might be things that come on your path, but you're not afraid of it. Knowing that things you may have to reroute, you may have to go left, you may have to go right, but God is still with you. Walking by faith is when God shows you everything. He gives you the vision. He shows you what it's going to look like. He shows you the end. He shows you what to do next. Walking by faith is when you can see it and you can walk in it. And many times we think walking by faith is us doing what we want to do and then stepping out in faith without God, thinking that He's going to back us up. No, walking by faith, God needs to show you first the direction that you are going, so that then you can take the first steps in the way that He has provided, not the way that you want to go. Not because you have so much zeal about doing something. God might show you something, but you have to sometimes be still for Him to create the way, for Him to start making the way clear to you, for you to start to see it so that you can walk in it. It's not all the time that we get up and go when we feel like it. It's not all the time where we have to be still and wait on the Lord when God is asking us to get up and go. We have to be able to understand what God is asking and requiring from us in that season. And sometimes God is just waiting on us to take the first steps, waiting on us to start moving forward, waiting on us to do everything that He has called us to do. And as we start moving forward, He will make it up for us. He will start to move with us. He will go ahead of us. He's already there. He's waiting on us. He's already made the way. Your life is already finished according to God. He sees the end from the beginning. So why are you afraid? He knows everything that you're going to go through. He knows the difficulties. He knows what you're going to stumble upon. He knows all of these things, but all He's asking you to do is just to be you, just to be who He's called you to be. I think about even my first marriage when I was asking the Lord, why? And He said, you were not being who I called you to be. You didn't even know who you were. You weren't walking in it. You weren't being who I've called you to be. I've put you on an assignment to be my vessel, to be Christ-like, to be love in this earth. And I have to pull you away sometimes because you're just not operating in who I've called you to operate in. You're not operating with my spirit. And so sometimes if God sees that destruction is on the way, he will pull you away. He'll pull you back. Sometimes we think it's the enemy holding us back, but sometimes it's God who has to hold us back because we're walking without his spirit. We're walking without the guidance, without the instruction that we need. And so sometimes it's not about, I bind this, I rebuke this. Sometimes it's about being still, getting in the presence of God and understanding the instructions that he has for your life, understanding the way that he wants you to go, understanding that he wants you to be happy. He wants you to feel his love. He wants you to live in abundance. He wants you to live in prosperity. He wants you to live and operate in these things. But you have to not fear, for one, and you have to get in his presence and be led by his spirit. When you have fear makes you focus on the things around you. Fear makes you operate in a way that is not pleasing to God, because you start operating in disobedience. You start operating going in the wrong way, and it starts altering your destiny, and God has to start trying to make things work for your good because you went in a different way. Fear is something that I had struggled with. It's something that has really kept me stagnant, kept me in place. And God started speaking to me about this fear. How, a lot of attacks, a lot of things we experience, God is going to be there. He's going to help us. He's going to pull us out. But a lot of the times we go through things because of fear. Fear is a door. It's a secret door that every enemy likes to walk through. So when you start experiencing all of these things, somewhere there is a door open. And a lot of the times this door could be fear. When God says, let things go, let them go. Don't hold on to them. Don't be attached to them. You got to let them go. Stop having fear. Don't be afraid of losing. Don't be afraid of letting go. Don't be afraid of just taking God by the hand, even if it's just you and him for a season. God wants the best for you. He has an amazing life for you. But when you reject his ways, it opens a door that you don't want to walk through. You don't want to live. You don't want to live life in survival mode. So you have to be obedient to the voice of God. You have to get in a place where you are in his presence and listening to him, listening to his instructions daily. Daily, there is something to do. Daily, the Holy Spirit has something he wants to teach you, has a way of elevating you. We have to get to a place where we are confident in who God has called us to be, and we're walking in it. And we're not taking on the ways of this world. We're not operating in something that we are not. And we are not fear. For God has given us not a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. It's time that we operate in that, knowing that we have power, knowing that we have a sound mind, knowing that we have love. And love is the greatest thing. Above all things, love is powerful. Everything else will fade away, but love will be the one thing that stands, because love is powerful. It's more powerful than we may think. I hope that this encouraged somebody. It definitely was a word for me, but I'm thanking God that he has not given us a spirit of fear, and that when we feel it, we can push forward. We can push past what this fear is telling us, and we can start operating in that which God has called us to operate in, and we can become everything that he says that we are without limitations. So thank you so much for watching, and God bless.